Aw yeah, giant anime girls. You know, it's quite rare that we get such an awesome concept for a game. Small alien girls come to Earth to spy on and collect data on girls 10 times the size of themselves, where lewd shenanigans ensue? Sign me up. But while the concept is great, let's see if the presentation is actually handled well. Gun Pixies is 1/3 third-person shooter and platformer stealth game, while the other 2/3 are science fiction, slice-of-life visual novel stuff. But before I get into the gameplay, unlike a lot of other ecchi games, Gun Pixies has a surprisingly decent story to back up its incredibly janky gameplay. You play as Beaton and Kamipon, two military special agents of the planet Pandemo. Their mission is to go to Earth to basically analyze and research emotions, and in short, love, since the people of Pandemo lack these things, which is crucial to the planet's survival and future. Under the orders of their commander, who looks oddly a lot like Boss from Catherine, you are sent to stealthily infiltrate an all-girls dorm by the name of Lilypad for the next half a year. After touching down and setting up, you slowly get to know and get attached to the girls of Lilypad, and go through what seem to start off as normal, average, everyday events that slowly warp into a sci-fi flavored adventure. The story starts off a bit slowly for the first hour or so of the game, while the girls are slowly introduced to the cast. A new girl is introduced for each of the story's major 8 parts. What starts off as college girls just being that, we get introduced to a building snatching phantom thief, video game goddesses, and galaxy spanning detectives. But even with all that going on, our main heroine's goals are to ensure the happiness of the human girls and make sure no harm comes their way. The story of Gun Pixies is very sweet if you look past all the lewd fetish stuff on display, with the main cast of girls being very human and relatable. Even though each girl fits into a very cliche role, they do break out of them for some more emotional moments of the game. I really enjoy the fact that they tackle real subjects here, because a lot of what was tackled was actually really relevant and not shoehorned in. The last third of the story really ramps up, and while this is where the gameplay was at its weakest, the story in terms of action was at its strongest. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the ending is thrilling, even if the conflict is sort of small time, and it's also very heartwarming. No bad or negative joke endings here, thankfully. My only major complaint in terms of character treatment is that sometimes we would go a while without hearing anything from the Pixies, solely focusing on the dorm girls and their life at school or going to the mall. Our heroes are Beaton and Kamipon. Beaton is the girl-obsessed lesbian pervert with only the best of intentions for everyone around her, and Kamipon is the girl B is infatuated with, while also being the level-headed and more cooler acting of the two. Not to say she doesn't have her own desires. The two of them make the odd couple, but a good team, and while their growth over the course of the game is slow, the payoff is sweet. There are 5 main girls who live in Lilypad, with 2 glorified cameos from everyone's video game universe, Neptunia and Noir. Yep, Nep shows up for a chapter of the game as an exchange student, and it is as weird and fun as it sounds like it should be. Don't ask me where this comes from into the canon of the Neptunia games, as even though I have played some of those games, I really need to play a lot more of them before I understand this crossover/reference. The 3 main girls are the Tori sisters, Tomboy and Foodie Kira, her younger sister Misa, who is the fetish-fueled otaku of the group, and the group's mother hen, Amayo, who is the big-tittied Oni-san. After the story starts to get rolling, we get introduced to the Kansai hailing Chunibuya Minimi, and the mysterious youngest sister of Kira and Misa, the girl named Eri. Oh, and of course Neptunia and Noir are also there to be interacted and befriend the main girls for a while they are there on exchange. Naturally, there are other characters who fill out the cast, like the dorm manager, the newscasters, and Manami's friend and Kira's rival. But the main cast gets fleshed out over the 11 or so hours you spend with them, and this is the game's greatest strength. The story is good, even if the slice of life stuff can be a bit slow, but it's enjoyable due to the characters, since I really did come to care for them. Although, the game is rife with spelling errors, like a surprising amount of them. This isn't even all of them, just the ones I managed to get a screenshot of. Outside of the misspellings and such, everything was written decently enough for a visual novel of this type. You have your lewd references, your video game and anime references, and your heartwarming moments. All you can really want from a VN like this, although don't think that's me saying this deserves any awards or anything, it's just a fun and fluffy visual novel. The game looks fairly darn nice, all the girls had great designs and were super cute, and all the costumes were fun and revealing, along with some colorful normal clothing, which was nice to look at. For the lewd stuff, it's all very ecchi, and the worst it gets is fog covering the sensitive areas of the girls. Most everything is hinted at through very revealing lingerie, which there is plenty of to see through the game. There were only 3 main level stages and a mini stage that was was the bathtub. Sadly, while the bedrooms were big and varied enough for each room, there just wasn't enough levels in my opinion. There is a whole dorm that we could have been able to explore, but we are limited to just 3 bedrooms that, while distinct, just felt very lacking in terms of overall environments we could have been able to explore. I was hoping for something like the living room or a kitchen to be here as well, but that didn't happen. And of course, we get an in-game reason for why the Pixies can't leave the dorm, that being Earth's atmosphere isn't suitable for the small life forms. The voice acting and music was pretty good, with fun upbeat tracks and a surprisingly intense track for the more serious moments. The voice acting was cute and suiting for each of the girls. Voice acting wasn't constant, but I am surprised with how much there was in the game. All the sound effects for the blasters and other things were okay, but nothing stands out, but that's sort of expected. Like I said earlier, the game is a third-person shooter mixed with platforming elements and the occasional stealth element here and there, and the other parts of the game are mostly non-interactive visual novel segments with 3 choices thrown in for some player input. For the actually playable bits, you are able to choose either B or Kome, both with different, albeit similar feeling weapons, as you run around the different rooms, collecting coins, fighting off weird condom squid viruses, and giving the giant girls pleasure via happy bullets. The gameplay is broken up into a few different sections, usually having you get information out of the girls by shooting different parts of the body to inject them with euphoria, then finding another objective. After finding that and some story progression, you solve a problem by taking part in a boss battle of sorts, where you basically defeat the giant girls by making them get so overloaded with pleasure they forget about the negativity in their lives, and the positivity you feed them helps them fix their problems by having them talk out their problems with the other cast. Then of course, after that, you get a bonus bath scene where you can interact with the bathing girls for coins. I think the footage is pretty self-explanatory. Rinse and repeat this for 8 chapters, with the final chapter devolving into cryptic object fighting and enemy disposal. Yeah, the last few chapters of gameplay are the weakest parts of the game, especially since the jankiness that you get used to earlier gets really bad here. Seriously, the game gets just insanely confusing with the final few objectives, and the enemy waves you have to fight are draining and go on forever. Let's get one of my biggest complaints out of the way first and foremost, and that is the fact that the game, since it is a console port to PC, is locked at 60 FPS. There was oddly a 4K option that supported 144 Hz, but that option wouldn't run any higher than 65 FPS for some reason. Due to this, I was forced to use the controller option instead of keyboard and mouse, since my PC really doesn't like 60 FPS and mouse options combined. The controller options are decent, but the one thing that kills it is that the roll and sprint button were mapped to the same button. So anytime I tried to sprint jump, sometimes I'd fall off a very high height due to a roll and have to restart my climb. Thank God for no fall damage though, that was a nice touch. I just wish they would have mapped sprint to the left analog stick, with roll being the X button or something like that, so I don't have to accidentally roll before I'm able to sprint. The controls feel a bit stiff, but otherwise it's your standard third-person shooter in a big open environment, with you having to traverse a world of normal-sized things turned huge compared to the small Pixies. Having to climb up couches and beds and shelves and stuff is really fun, but the controls and camera for platforming are a bit uncomfortable, especially with how odd the camera is. If you walked into a cramped environment, your camera locks to a position, and this actually made me sick sometimes. Occasionally, I just didn't have a good estimate of how far I would need to jump or a sense of scale from one area to the other, and would fall all the way down. You get a hook shot later in the game, but it comes in right near the end and still isn't all that helpful. While exploring, you get new panties you find laying around to wear later, collect coins to buy new weapons and gear, and fight off condom squids. While you collect coins, you can go into the in-game store and buy lots of different things, along with more costumes and gear after New Game Plus. Things like new scopes, weapons, and of course, pantsu. The giant girls don't pose too much of a threat, and they really aren't all that interactable with, sometimes allowing you to get squished under their feet, and they really aren't all that smart. If they see you, all you have to do is stand still in an anime pose like an action figure till they turn away. Sometimes they will give off dangerous stress in the form of an attack, but this is really the only dangerous thing in your way, as the squid enemies that you fight are just annoying and not actually dangerous unless you aren't careful. If you get injured, the Pixies' clothes shred more and more until they are completely nude, save for clouds around their nether regions. The squids do have a lot of variety, but the only real change outside of their cosmetic look is the fact that they have more health points, but they mostly just stand around staying still unless you get super close and then they initiate an attack. Having to run around and find the squids to kill them got super annoying, especially when they were spread out around the room. Sometimes there'd be one left and I just couldn't find it because it fell from the original spawning point it was supposed to be in. The only squid that proves any difficulty is the white one, since if you hit then miss them, they hide in their shield for a few long seconds before you can try to shoot them again. It wasn't so much difficult as it was just annoying because you had to wait for them to open up again so you could actually shoot them. I do love the fact that the game gives you a fly around camera, which is intended to take screenshots, but I used it to look for items I might need, or if there were enemies on high ledges I didn't want to waste time climbing. You do get a scanning device that allows you to see things you can interact with, and if you splurge your gold, also gives you the ability to see through girls' clothes. Only to the panties though, and you can't move around using the scope, leaving you vulnerable to attacks. With the giant girls, if you shoot different parts of them, you get different bits of information that can help you in the story. You can also investigate different objects in the room to give the Pixies more info on Earth and get unique dialogue options. The bathtub segments are timed and have you running around the rim of the tub shooting the girls to get them into a more revealing pose so you can hop on and enjoy them for a second before they get back into the bath. After you beat the game, you get a bunch of goodies to play around with in your New Game Plus, plus you have the ability to play any of the story missions to improve your rank, and yes, you can replay the bath missions, which allows you to grind gold for the best equipment. And with all that said, while I am sad that the size angle the game was going for was downplayed quite a bit and not as prominent as I wanted it to be, along with how janky the actual gameplay is, I ended up liking Gun Pixies quite a bit, even though the game does have a lot of faults. This is not a game for everyone and will definitely have its niche audience, but I know those people who will like the game will genuinely enjoy it for what it is. It's a pleasant enough experience past the final level frustrations and the jank throughout, and while it is far from perfect, I did have a nice time with the story and the earlier gameplay sections. A huge thank you to PCube for sending me an early review copy of the game, as I really enjoyed having the chance to talk about it on the show. Another huge thank you to the show's patrons, Gemstar Gold and Project Nova, and I just want to say a big thank you to my good friend for drawing the episode's thumbnail. I adore it, and I want you all to go check out his art account, which will be linked down in the description below. If you want to help support the show, please consider sharing the video with a friend, or checking out my Patreon linked in the description below. If you have any comments or recommendations, please leave them down below, as I love answering and reading everything that you guys leave. Until next time, this is Thierry Williamson signing off until the next video. See you guys!